Hey guys, Dave here from Wolf in the Wild Survival. Returning to my old campsite after not being here for at least a year. Last time I was here, I was camping with my buddy Nick. We did a video about it. I don't really know what I'm going to get up to today, but I figured I'd shoot something or other and see if I can make a video out of it. After a year, my chair is still intact. Unfortunately, I didn't bring the parachute part of it to actually be able to sit down, but we should be able to make this work for today. So it looks like the gear rack survived pretty well too. Oh. 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 Get that off as well. Yeah, I'd say it held up pretty good. That'll be usable at least for this year. On with it for a little while. So let's get into resources. The resources in the area for food, basically, I guess. There's lots of stone, there's lots of wood, there's all kinds of resources that way. But let's get into the food aspect of it. Okay, now for starters, right here, this is an oak tree. And the whole area is just littered with old acorns. Normally, you can't eat acorns. They're bitter, they're full of tannins, they cause constipation if you eat too many. However, if you have diarrhea and you're in the woods, you can use some of the crushed up acorns and a couple of the leaves to make a tea that tastes like absolute crap, but it will help to clear up your diarrhea. So that could save your life. It's medicine. Who cares what it tastes like, right? So yes, there's acorns which you can boil the tannins out and then utilize them as food. Over here is juniper bush. You can't necessarily utilize these as food, and it's a little early in the year right now, but these grow sort of bluish berries on them. And although those berries are somewhat toxic in large quantities, you can use them as a flavoring agent to help add a little bit of flavor to your food. And I'm sure some of you would know, after several days of eating just bland food, your body will kind of start to reject eating it, and it'll be incredibly hard to get it down without gagging and possibly vomiting. So you could use 1, 2, or depending on how used to them you are, even up to 3 berries to flavor food. And I don't think this is the particular species, but these berries are actually used to make gin as well, or at least to flavor gin. So they taste very pine tree like, which a lot of people might not like, but if you like gin, then you might want to use these as a flavoring agent. Here we have some unripened juniper berries. They're kind of a light green now, but they will darken to a blue, and then like a really, really dark, almost black blue, but it'll have like a blue powdery coating on it. Sort of similar in the way that blueberries have like a blue powdery coating around them for some reason. This seems to be the only juniper bush in the whole area that has these berries on it right now. I don't know why it's the only one that does, but this one seems to be blooming early. As previously mentioned, This area is covered in ferns, or some people across the pond from us call it bracken. Some of these are edible when they're fiddleheads. I do believe I have a video about that already, so if you're interested in knowing more about it, by all means go check that out. But if you're here the right time of year, they're food. If not, you're like this. A lot of the time when I come here, it's so rocky you can't put tent pegs down. It's just kind of one of those things about living in Muskoka. There's just so much granite and quartz and whatnot. It's not a lot of room for tent pegs down into the soil in most places. Areas where you are able to stick a tent peg down, it's going to be sort of deep woods kind of thing, and there's going to be a lot of bugs, so I prefer to be out here. However, that makes it a little bit uncomfortable because you're sleeping on rock, and especially early in the year, that rock is cold and it just radiates up. It's crazy. I use this to build like a big nest underneath my tent. Before I put the tent down, I put a lot of bracken, a lot of fern, sort of down to make bedding. And it's just so much more comfortable. It does help to block the cold, and it makes for a much better camping experience. So these are useful for a number of ways. Plane coming around again. We're under total fire ban right now. It's just been so hot and dry. We're not allowed to light fires at all for any reason. So we got planes and helicopters and whatever just sort of roaming around, making sure that everybody's following the fire ban. And some of you have not. Some of you people have come up from the city and you've lit great big bonfires, and not cool, guys. Not cool. You knew better. Don't be burning down my home and then going back to yours. There's also a lot of pine trees around here, and what goes with the white pine is pine cones. Now, this one here has already opened up, and it's no good as food anymore. But if you were to get some out of the tree before everything opens up and before the animals get to it, you can get pine nuts out of here that, you know, depending on how much work it takes to get them, you might actually burn more calories than you achieve, but you can get some food into you that way, hopefully with minimal effort. But if not, you can pick these pine cones up, and they have a lot of resin in them, just the same as fatwood. So maybe not your tinder, maybe sort of a stage 1 type fuel. These will help you to get a fire going like really quickly. You can gather up a good pile of these, and you've almost guaranteed fire. All you need is just a little bit of tinder, which, I mean, we got cattails, we got dried grass, we got all kinds of birch bark and everything around here. Getting a fire going is not a problem here, not at all. Failing that, in your area, you can always, you know, practice making curls and get that down, and you can use them as tinder as well. So pine cones, maybe food, maybe fire. Either way, they are useful. Moving a little bit further along with the whole idea of the pine trees, there are a lot of white pine around here. In my opinion, white pine is probably the best pine tree to have in your area. In my opinion, it really is. Now, you could make a tea out of the pine needles, and a lot of people don't necessarily think that it tastes so good. Me, myself, I'm not really partial to it, but it is calories, it is vitamins. It will help to warm you up and keep you going. So, you know, I mean, in a bug-out situation, survival situation, you do what you got to do. So, pine needle tea, I'll take it. It's better than just drinking plain old water sometimes. Also, The pine sap, that resin, we all know that it's good for starting fires. And if you have the ability to collect some and take it with you, by all means, yes, do. Having so many white pine trees in my area, I don't have to really do that. I don't have to bother with it. My campsite here is full of them. Now, I make toothpaste while I'm in the bush. I take a little bit of pine sap and put it in some really, really hot water, along with some gotta be careful about noises and whatnot that you might hear, because the bears are pretty active right now, and I don't want any of them coming up on me from behind. Anyway, what was I saying? Yeah, wintergreen. Some pine sap in hot water with wintergreen, and then you just sprinkle in some campfire ashes, and you've got yourself a really, really good toothpaste. And you can also use it to, wash up your hands and whatnot as well. And it's very, very good. It really does the job. The little bit of campfire ash adds just a little bit of abrasion, so that, cleaning your teeth, your hands, whatever. Pine sap is like antibacterial, antiviral, very, very good cleaner. If you get it in the right mixture into the water. I mean, you get just plain pine sap on, you got sticky mess and dirt sticks to you and whatever, which is a bit of a drag. But if you cut yourself, go over to a pine tree, you take like a clean stick and you put the pine sap where you cut yourself, that's nature's polysporin right there. That is perfect. So lots of applications having white pine around. I personally think it's one of the most useful trees in my area. Cambion. Pine tree cambion. It can be eaten in small quantities, especially if you have maybe a little bit of oil or animal fat or something or other to cook it in to help to break down the fibers a little bit. Maybe you could eat a little bit more if you're able to cook it. You don't want to eat too much of it. It will cause constipation, and if you get so constipated that you're actually impacted, you could die. And that is not the goal of a survival situation, obviously. So cambion, use with caution. However, I mean, you could take the cambion and boil it into a tea as well, and I think that the cambion tea has maybe a little bit better flavor than the pine needle tea, even though it's very, very, very similar. But like I say, there's tons of wintergreen around here, and I can shove a bunch of wintergreen in there as well and bring that minty kind of flavor into the tea mixture of anything that I'm drinking. I could just use that. And here is your wintergreen. Now, if you... Oh. No, it's not going to do it. Sorry, guys. If you were to pick the wintergreen and tear it and then give it a smell, you will smell that minty wintergreen smell. I do not know of any plant in the woods that smells minty and is harmful. I could be mistaken, you know, like I don't know everything, but as far as I know. Okay, now the newer leaves are nice and soft, and those are the good ones. The old leaves are stiff and waxy. The new ones are a little bit waxy, but not like the older ones. You can use either one, but the younger ones taste better. and probably have more goodness to them, more nutrients, more... Oh, oh, it's so good. Okay. Oh, man, I love wintergreen so much. Now, the old ones are probably best utilized like in a toothpaste or a wash or a tea or whatever. But you can chew them up to get the flavor. I generally spit them out. But the young ones that are nice and malleable and they're not crunchy when you do that to them. Oh, it's just so good. So, all along this area is just tons of wintergreen. Later in the year, they're going to come up with red berries. Those red berries are edible. Very delicious. Not that plentiful. You're probably not making a meal out of just wintergreen berries. But still, when you're gathering up food, say you've got half a dozen to a dozen frog legs, you cook them up, you flavor them a little bit with one or two of those juniper berries, gather up some wintergreen, maybe some wintergreen berries, a little bit of caribou moss. Maybe you use the older wintergreen, or possibly maybe some of the juniper as a flavoring agent for the caribou moss because it doesn't really have a taste. You know, utilizing your resources in the area, you can make a pretty good meal. Hey, buddy. This here's caribou moss. That white crunchy stuff that a lot of you walk on some of your hikes and travels. I know it's got a couple of different names. Around around here it's caribou moss. Doesn't seem very appetizing, does it? Well, it ain't. It is not. Some of you might remember me eating some on my 7-day survival challenge I did last year, and hopefully I will do like a part 2 this year sometime. Caribou moss has to be boiled in 3 changes of water, and it has to be at a full rolling boil for no less than 5 minutes each time. Otherwise, it's got like this sort of a bad semi-toxic compound or acidic compound that really messes up your GI tract, and you don't want to be messing around with that. Cattail, growing all to the side of me here. Cattail is very sort of stringy, which could be useful for making cordage. You'd have to process it, dry it a little bit. Another thing, because the leaves are so long and flat and broad, you could weave these into mats, which you could do a couple of layers, and you could sleep on them, and it would be fairly comfortable. You hear the frog, like right behind the camera there a little bit? that's a resource that I haven't been able to show on camera so far. And there's some big frogs in here too. If you got 6, 8, 12 of them, you can make a meal out of the legs. Oh yeah. Anyway. Oh. Sorry guys, these deer flies are driving me nuts right now. I might have to put on some more insect repellent. Cattails, cordage, weaving them into sleeping mats and whatnot. The down inside, under the ground, the roots and the very lower part of the stem are edible. You got to be kind of careful about where you eat your cattail from, though, because in stagnant, polluted water, they themselves will be polluted, and they will have whatever grossness. It'd be like drinking the water unfiltered. In clean, fresh running water, that's pretty much your best bet. You could, like, this is stagnant water. There's no fish in here. This is a swamp. Oh, the beaver's coming right at me. The beaver's coming. He came for a snack. Sorry, guys. He's literally like, he was 10 feet from me, maybe. Well, he knows I'm here now if he didn't before. This is why I get so kind of distracted a lot of the time when I'm shooting videos, because there's so much going on around me that I don't get to put on camera. And while I'm paying attention to, you know, what's going on around me and hoping to get something interesting on camera while I'm doing what I'm doing, I tend to kind of ramble on a little bit. Oh. Nice shaded area right now, which generally means that the bugs are more of a problem, but the heat's less of a problem. So I'm going to rely on my clip-on and my bug dope to keep me good for now. Okay. So we were talking about the cattails and how useful they can be. And I got to food. Now, I did bring my shovel, and I could dig one of those up, mess around with it. I don't plan on utilizing it, and I'm not generally a wasteful person. And I will have an up-to-date video on cattail. The last one I did, I had my old dog with me, and it was just kind of a thing. I didn't get everything that I wanted to get. So I will have to do an updated video. Right now, I don't want to be wasteful and dig one up. So you'll have to kind of use your imagination and bear with me a little bit. When you pull up or dig up the cattail root, and you're pulling the leaves apart, and you're way down at the bottom, and it's nice, it goes from a nice bright green to a really soft pale white, you get this sort of mucilaginous goop as you're peeling it apart. The swampier or wetter the area, the more goop you're going to get. That mucilaginous ooze is it's a good topical painkiller. Let me see, I did a video a while back. I think I called it like fishing trip with a shore dinner or something like that. My nephew and I went out, and we got some pike, and we cooked them up and ate them. And I got bit by one of the pike, and I used cattail on the bite area to take the sting away. Works very, very well. It's also really, really good for sunburns for two reasons. One, because it is a topical painkiller, so it'll take the sting of that burn away. Two, it's actually a pretty effective sunscreen. I believe, and don't quote me on this, but I believe it's somewhere along the lines of like an SPF 10 to 15 kind of thing. So really useful in that aspect. If you're out and you're lost and you get a sunburn and you find some cattail, you dig or pull some of those up and get some of that goop and just spread it all over you, it will soothe, it will take the pain away, and it will help to keep your exposure to the sun down by blocking the UV rays that cause the sunburn in the first place. So we have here a blackberry bush, which I'm pretty sure that's blackberry. There's also raspberry nearby. I'm pretty sure this is blackberry, but they can be a little hard to tell the difference early in the spring, which this is obviously nowhere near ready to be eaten. But the blackberry leaves and the raspberry leaves can be picked and brewed into a tea that's actually pretty good. Now, blackberry leaf tea is very high in vitamin C, which will help like keep your immune system kind of up, generally. Pretty favorable in a bad situation. Also, blackberry leaf tea traditionally has been used to treat like sore throats, sore gums, maybe used as a mouthwash for like mouth ulcers or cankers. Pretty good for somebody who maybe has been lost for a little while, hasn't brushed their teeth in a couple of days, and they're starting to get, you know, that sort of that carpet mouth, and maybe, you know, the gums are starting to inflame a little bit. Blackberry leaf tea will definitely help with that, even if you only use it as a rinse or a wash. Drinking the tea itself is it's pretty good in helping to cure diarrhea. Much like the oak tree remedy that I was talking about, the blackberry leaf, I don't think it's quite as strong, so it'll probably take more doses, but it'll taste a whole lot better. Raspberry leaf tea, on the other hand, probably not such a good application. in a survival situation other than just for the benefit of having a tea. Raspberry tea is good for preventing morning sickness, increasing fertility, both in men and women, apparently, and it helps pregnant women sort of along the way, sort of right up to the very end. It helps to prevent the labor pains and placental delivery and all that kind of stuff. Not really quite so useful in a survival situation, or at least I would hope. I can't imagine that being useful in all but the worst possible scenarios. But either way, I mean, you could still drink it just as a tea. It's just not really going to do that much for you medicinally in a survival situation. Now, I hope for this next little piece, I'm going to get this right. Something that I've been wanting to add to my camp pack, specifically as a more of an inch bag survival kind of thing, maybe added into one of the pouches that I don't go into that often, I believe is called a spirule. So far I can only find plastic spirals, and I really, really want the metal ones, but they don't seem to really have those anymore. And you know, I'm not much of an online shopper, to be honest. I've kind of started a little bit, but I'm gonna have to check that out. Now, for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, or for all of you if I'm totally hacking that name out, what I want is a device that you would drill a hole into a tree and then take that device and tap it into the tree, hammer it into the tree, and the tree sap would flow out and into some sort of collection receptacle that you have. My area is packed full of sugar maple. In the springtime, you'd be surprised how much you could get in a short time too. In the springtime, when the sap is running, it's just crazy how much you can get. And you could drink that like right out of the tree. You don't need to filter it. You don't need to do anything to it. You could drink that just like water. Or you could boil it down into sap, which takes quite a long time. And for every like 40 units you get 1 unit out of that. So that's fairly time consuming. Also, you can do the same thing with white birch trees. And possibly yellow birch, I think, but definitely white birch. And birch water, there's nothing healthier than birch water. It's so good for you. You can boil that down into a sap as well, but for every 100 units, you get 1 unit. That's considerably more time consuming. So you get 100 ounces and you get 1 ounce. That's a lot of work. So that was the blueberry plant, which blueberries, I'm sure as we all know, are delicious, but also very high in antioxidants. So very, very good for you. More antioxidants in blueberries than pretty much any fruit. So, I mean, you're doing good there. The leaves themselves, blueberry leaf tea helps to reduce problems with allergies. It helps to bring down your allergy problem. If you're in the bush, no allergy meds, and you're suffering from allergies, I mean, that's gotta suck. That's not good at all. The blueberry leaf tea will help with that. Now, I have heard somewhat recently that blueberry leaf tea is showing some possible promise in helping to either prevent or treat neurodegenerative disease disorders, which I'm assuming is things like Alzheimer's and doesn't matter. Anyway, you know, it's fact of the matter is the blueberry leaf tea has to be good for your brain in some way, shape, or form if it helps to do that. Now, this might be a bit of a leap, but if you're in a survival situation, you've made a few bad decisions, it's a possibility that that blueberry leaf tea, in addition to alleviating those allergy symptoms, might possibly help you to sort of get the juices flowing and get your thinking cap on so that you don't make any more bad decisions. I know that's kind of a leap and it's pretty unlikely, but I mean, if it helps to treat neurodegenerative disorders, it's got to be good for your brain. And maybe a cup or two might be the difference between a bad decision and a good decision, and you might be able to think your way out a little bit better. I don't know. It is a bit of a leap, but hey, it is possible, right? Even in a minor way. The fact of the matter is, it'll help. Now, what we have here is called Solomon seal. Now, I know that this is Solomon seal because the flowers run down the stem along with the leaves. If this was false Solomon seal, all of the flowers would be right up at the very end. So when the flowers line up along the bottom of the stem, as pretty much as far as the leaves go down, you know you got Solomon seal. The root of Solomon seal is edible. It will require some cooking, and it's used probably pretty similar to the way like a potato would be. I wouldn't imagine that you'd get much of a root off of such a small one like this, but it's very early spring, and well, it'll grow a lot bigger. But yeah, this Solomon seal, every part of it is poison except for the root. Those flowers will turn to berries. Those berries are poisonous as well. Do not eat those. Cook and eat the root on Solomon seal only. I don't see any false Solomon seal anywhere, but where you find one, you usually find the other. The flowers will be right up at the very end. The whole plant is poisonous except for the fully ripe berries on false Solomon seal. So later in the year, late summer, early fall, I believe it is, when the berries come to full ripe, kind of on the false Solomon seal, you can eat those berries. I guess that about concludes this video of me just hanging around my old campsite. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope it inspires you to open up your eyes, take a look around your own campsites, your own bug out areas, your own backyards even, and just take note of what resources you have available to you. We'll see you guys in the next video. Until then, stay wild.